Hello, everyone. I'm Marek Wyszynski, and I'm delighted you're here. I'm happy to be here for the course Perfecting Everyday Moves. The idea for the course started when I was working at the hospital, at Lenox Hill Hospital, in my early days of the career. And it started with recognition how important everyday moves are, like getting out of bed, getting from sitting to standing. These are the primary functions that we do thousands, if not millions of times in our daily life. And these are functions that impact a lot in our life. So that's how the whole idea started. My original idea was to take people in the hospital that are just waiting for the doctor to come, sometimes waiting for hours and hours until the doctor comes and tells them, okay, your health, the infection is gone, we'll discharge you tomorrow. And many of hours are spent just waiting, idling, which could be a moment for your breathing practice, moment for practicing of simple everyday moves. So this will be 5-week course, which in some way, I'm always concerned that people will recognize as kind of like, I already know how to get up from a chair. I can tell you a story, my Feldenkrais story, when I was traveling with my family and friends to, must have been a long weekend or something, and we were camping. And I had my training program, Feldenkrais training program. So most of the weekend I'll be gone. I'll come in the evening to meet with them. And they would ask me, so what did you do, Marek? And I said, well, we're working on getting up from a chair. They look at each other and they thought I was kidding them. They would say like, what, you don't know how to get up from chair? You need 4 days of work to get up from a chair? Is this ridiculous? And I can tell you that 4 days is not enough. When you learn what to look at, what kind of elements, small details that matter, and maybe a month course could be in order. So this next 5 weeks, we're going to take a look at regular functions. Little theory, not much. Typically, I love anatomy, and we will share some anatomy during the courses. Maybe it won't be as heavy as in my previous courses, because typical courses are devoted to specific body parts like hips, like spine, like neck, like shoulder. This will be function oriented and will reverse what we're paying attention to. So, but let me bring the PowerPoint and we'll share that a few slides that I prepared. So over the 5 weeks, we will take a look at these basic functions. And some of them, like number 2, sitting to standing, I discover over the years of practice that doing full session of an hour or more of practicing getting up from a chair is not smart, because people's knees, you will have troubles with the pain or hips or knees. So we're going to actually, the number 2, sit to stand, chunk it down and practice during each of the 5 sessions. So we'll start today with a small chunk that will be on getting up from a chair. And otherwise, the sessions will be devoted to bed mobility, rolling out of bed, coming from sitting to standing, bending, lifting, stooping, picking up objects, carrying things. There will be a section on manipulating objects, meaning grasping, pushing, pulling, reaching, things like that we do. There'll be, of course, section on locomotion or balance and basic moving, walking. And I hope we'll have fun. You will take this work and you will practice. And why do we practice? Why is it so important? I think there are 3 reasons that this course can be of great benefit. Number 1 is healing. Because you have some sort of pain, ache, injury, or some kind of diseases that you're struggling with. And how you do these things, how you bend, how you pick up things from the dishwasher will affect your health of your shoulder or knee or spine. Because this is what we're, in some way, that might be even more important than typical exercises, strengthening, stretching, not to diminish, of course, we need to have sufficient strength, we need to have sufficient flexibility, but how we implement what we learn during exercises into our daily life will impact whether you feeling your injuries healing, you're back on your feet, back fully recover, or whether something is dragging and with lots of flare-ups and setbacks. And the tricky part is that most of us do not feel, I can't tell you how many times I hear from my clients who come and say, oh, I pulled my back. And I'm asking, so what prompted it? And no, nothing. I didn't do anything. It was just the same thing. It just came out of the blue. And very often that out of the blue is something like the way you dry your foot when coming out of the bath or put the cream lotion on can have an effect on whether you later on feel spasms in your back. So health is number one. Why to spend time rehearsing and perfecting these functions. Number two is performance. And this could be even high performance. And this is probably hard sell, because if you are a performing artist or Olympic athlete, you will think that already you know how to get out of bed and you know how to reach and manipulate you at much higher level. But the thing is that a lot of times we actually don't know what we're missing. I remember my nephew from Sweden was visiting me once, and he's into sports of lifting, Olympic lifting, picking up hundreds of pounds. And then he got interested, what is it that I'm doing? What is this Feldenkrais method? And I wanted to make it meaningful to him. So I asked him, so what do you do? What's you interested? And he told me, oh, he has foot problems, especially when he is lifting heavy weights, which he goes to the gym several times a week and practices with heavy loads. So I wanted to see how he's getting up from a chair. And boom, there, in how he was getting up from the chair, you could see why his foot was collapsing, why the problem within the foot, but not only that, how much he can lift will depend whether that foot stands strong or whether it's a little bit of a tip. And that was happening for him when he was getting up from a chair. He was actually blown away, because first he was like, what do you mean? I'm getting up, down, I can do hundreds, whatever you want. But then I challenged him a little bit with a difficult movement of differentiating movement of the head rolling and getting up from a chair. He had a little coordination problem there. And then every time he did it was highlighting what he was doing with his foot. So performance is the second reason why we're here. And the third thing that I think will impact, this course will impact, is something beyond biomechanics, beyond just movement, something about the quality, the state of being that we are in, the how we are, the quality of the state that you're in. And the story here that I would like to share is the story of Vietnamese monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who was visiting another monk, Thomas Merton, and Merton told him that he could recognize the true monk by the way he was opening the door, just how he managed turning the doorknob that was unique with the quality of attentiveness, mindfulness, not yanking on the door or rushing or doing 5,000 things at the same time, but with a quality of being. So these are the three areas, and let's practice now. Come to sitting on the chair somewhere away from the computer, so you could get up from it and then sit down and stand up easily, unrestricted by the desk. Good. And as you're sitting, get up and sit down as you normally do. Nothing special. Get up and sit down and pay attention. Pay attention to what do you sense? What do you feel when you're doing this? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Do you have some sort of pain or ache somewhere when you do that? Or do you feel comfortable? Now, pay attention to amount of effort you're putting to get up. On scale 0 to 10, how much effort do you find being implemented in the process of getting up? Would you say it's smooth throughout the movement, or do you feel some spikes of tension suddenly when you're getting up or when you're sitting down? Good. Stop, sit back, rest a little bit. Maybe even lean in the chair. You can stoop back. You can slouch a little bit. It's okay. The theme throughout the course, the mantra that you may want to explore will be less effort. And here, the thing about less effort, I have a little bit an argument against myself. Because a lot of times I think the Feldenkrais method is associated with kind of effortlessness, doing less, relaxing, and certain things like lifting weight, for example, or pushing a heavy car or jumping, it's not really effortless. You really need effort, but it has to be channeled and proper effort for the minimum effort for maximum return. That's what we're interested. But in general, still the rule less effort applies. Come back to the front of the chair and slow it down, the movement of coming onto your feet, but don't get up yet. Do that first moment, don't get up yet. The first moment as you're shifting your weight, right? You're moving a little bit forward. Notice how much effort is to start the movement from stillness or of being upright, and you're making this very first motion of coming forward. Notice how much effort is there to do this, and then come back, and then go again. That first moment of your torso leaning forward. Since for many, the wonderful movement will be in the hip joints, where your pelvis is tilting forward over your thighs. And this way, you're bringing your center of mass forward toward your feet. Sense how much effort does it take and whether the effort is continuous. Abandon goal of getting up. See if you could keep on moving forward, forward, forward until your weight is over your feet, and then you find that your pelvis is up in the air. And then, of course, you come up, you straighten yourself up to standing. And then going back, we reverse it. So it's not sudden letting go, like dropping like bag of potatoes back into sofa or back to the chair. But in the control way, return until you're back to your upright sitting posture. Nothing like making an error purposely. Could you make effortful action of getting up? You coming, and then you suddenly, often we hold our breath or we go like something internally. Do this at 3-4 times. Purposely put too much effort. Clench something, your fists, hold your breath, tighten underneath your armpits, stiffen your legs. Good. And now back to less effort. And no sudden spikes of effort. So if we had an illustration of effort, it's continuous, land, continuous, and then you're standing. There's no sudden spike and then nothing and spike again, nothing. Feel if it could be a little bit more uniform. Good. Sit back and rest a moment, please. As you're resting, try to pay attention to front of your torso, your breastbone, your chest, your ribs, your abdomen. And then shift your attention to the back of your body, which will be your spine, maybe the back of your head even, shoulder blades, your ribs in the back, and then the area of the lower back, the upper lower back where kidneys are, the lower back into your pelvis. Can you feel these surfaces? Please come back to the front edge of the seat. And this time, put your right hand on the front of your belly and left hand on the back of your back, maybe the back of your hand. So the two hands hold your lower torso, right hand on the front, left hand on the back. Go back to the process of leaning forward, preparing yourself to get up, and sense whether the two hands, you could see some stillness there. There's no sudden arching of the back or collapsing in the lower back while you're moving, but your whole back is pretty much just changing the angle from being vertical, upright, to coming forward, and then to coming onto your feet. See if you could move from sitting to standing, keeping your lower torso. If you thought of maybe even a brace, like a corset brace that braces your pelvis, your lumbar spine, and your lower ribs, it would be possible to get up and to sit down wearing a brace. See if that is what you normally do, or whether there is some moment when you start to either slouch forward or arch back in the process. Again, still with the same effort. What you found before, it's don't suddenly change it. Quietness. Great. And now again, nothing like a good error. Can you make the movement and feel that you, for example, rounding, like beginning of movement forward is collapsing in your lower back. Head goes forward and down, but you slouch a little bit. Do that movement. You're starting to get up by slouching, and then you find out to continue, you need to switch over to arching, and your spine makes a little bit of a whip-like motion. Do this. Of course, don't hurt yourself. If you feel any difficulty, avoid. Throughout the next 5 weeks, don't do a single movement repetitively if you find that it strains you or gives you pain. Now reverse it. Some of us arch the lower back when we're getting up. So the first moment as you're moving forward, arch the lumbar spine. Many of us who tend to stand too upright, too early, instead of going forward, we get up like that. See if you could do this quote unquote error or choice. You arch the back, your chest lifts up, and you stand up straight, but you actually feel that you're falling back a little bit because the weight is not sufficiently over the feet. Do this 2-3 times. Lovely. And now the third option, stillness there. No arching, no slouching, no collapsing. You bringing your torso forward, and then you come up. Therefore, you're not all the time upright. You are leaning forward, but not from the spine scrunching, but from your hip joints. Can you feel movement in your hip joints? Can you sense movement of your pelvis relatively to your thighs? Sit back and rest again. Slouch back, maybe close your eyes. And as you have your eyes closed, sense your hip joints. Hip joint is the ball and socket type of joint. Your thigh bone has a ball at the end, a sphere of the femoral head, which sits in the cup of the pelvis, socket of the pelvis. The greatness of ball and socket kind of joints is that they have maximum amount of freedom. When you have ball and socket, you can move in any direction, forward, back, right and left, turn diagonally. For example, our elbow or knee doesn't have it. It's mostly is a hinge. And thank God you don't go sideways. You shouldn't go sideways too much with the knee. Very small amount of movement. But our hips allow us to dance salsa, to do pelvic clocks, to do all sorts of movements with our pelvis. Come back to the front edge of the seat. Put your thumbs now in the crease of your pants in front. So the back of your hands are on the sides of your hips, and thumbs are into the crease. And as you're coming forward, see if you can feel, experience your pelvis moving toward your thumbs. Some of you will even feel that your thumbs get pinched by your pelvis. Can you feel it? That kind of jackknife articulation between your pelvis and your thigh. This is our first sitting to standing lesson, learning how to move like a hinge in the hip. Torso is quiet, spine is quiet. You're coming forward and up, and you're reversing the process on the way back. You're bowing forward, but not from the spine. Feel bowing forward from your hips moving back while the torso head goes forward. Go forward. Great. Next time you're standing, stand there. Feel how your hips support you. And take a little walk around. If you have little room, if you don't have much room, walk in place, lifting one heel, lifting the other heel, bending your knees. And pay attention to how you articulate within your hip joints. When you're swinging your leg forward, you feel movement in the hip. Can you feel movement of the hip of the standing leg? Because you're moving, your pelvis is moving relatively to fixed foot. Foot is planted, and you're moving your pelvis over that foot to the front. That's actually hip extension. You're swinging your leg forward, that hip flexion. You walking over the standing platform, it's toward hip extension. Feel your hips, mobility in walking. Perfect.